All right, good evening. Daf Yomi first for our week continues to be sponsored by Josh and Chana Bernstein, B'schus Refuah Shlema, for our dear friend Yanki Flussberg, who's Yaakov Moshe ben Fredel Itta. And
having an operation tonight.
Having an operation tonight. Okay, so good. So there's a very important Refuah Shlema. We'll finish the parak in his schus in Mirza Hashem. And also in honor of their son Pinny's upcoming Hanachas Tefillin. And in honor of their son Yosef's upcoming Upsharon. Lots of mazel tovs there. Beautiful. Wow, it's a great thing going on there. Okay.
I thought you were going to say in honor of Yosef's Mechira.
That's right. Yeah. So he has a hard time this week's parsha. Okay, so we are Rabbi Yehuda. Really? Is that where we are? Rabbi Yehuda Omer? Okay, great. Okay, I was further along than I thought we were. Okay. Rabbi Yehuda says, that is, about 10, 12 lines down? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 lines down. Rabbi Yehuda says. So we had been discussing bringing blood from an outside offering into the Beis HaMikdash, whether that invalidates the blood. So we had one shita, it says that it only applies chatos, blood that goes in is going to be ruined. Then Rabbi Akiva said that it was going to apply to all kinds of offerings. We had Rabbi Eliezer, who said that it applies to not just a chatos, but like an asham also, because he has the pasuk ka chatos ka asham. Rabbi Yehuda chimes in at the end and he says, if you did it b'shogeg, if you didn't have intent, you came in b'shogeg, then it doesn't invalidate the blood. It's not a matter of location, it's a matter of intent, right? That's what he's suggesting. So now, says the Gemara, ha mazid puzzle. That means that if you came in and did it on purpose, then it would be puzzle. So therefore, it sounds like, right? Is he saying that he needed to come in and actually do the atonement? Because we had this conversation before. Did he actually have to do it? Or do you have to come in with the intent to do it, even if he didn't actually do it? So, beshe keeper or beshelo keeper? Did he actually do the atonement? Did he actually sprinkle the blood or not? So, Rabbi Yirmiyah says, "Mimash mashenemar," since the pasuk says, "Ves parachatos, ves seir chatos, asher huva es damam," the bull of the chatos and the goat of the chatos, that their blood was brought lechaper ba kodesh in order to atone in the kodesh. So, therefore, ma tamad lomar. Matamad lomar v'hasoref, right? So then, what is it afterward? What does the pasuk say that you're supposed to burn, right? So after all, the pasuk, I should read the rest of that pasuk. It says parachatas v'sir chatas shihuva el estamam lechaper b'kodesh. The blood, the offerings that had their blood already brought. Yotzi, the pasuk that's not quoted here is Yotzi el michutz lamachaneh. You're supposed to take it out of the camp. V'sarfu ba'esh, and burn it in the fire. Then it continues on and says, Ma tamad lomer. Why does the pasuk then have to say, V'hasarefosam yichabes begadav? The one who burned it should wash his clothes, right? We already know that you're supposed to burn it, so just say that he should burn it and wash his clothes, right? Why does it have to say, and the one who burns it washes his clothes? So, Ma tamad lomar v'hasaref. So what do you mean? So the Gemara, the Brisa asks, one sec, what do you mean, what is it for? Legufei itzrich, to tell me, who's the guy who has the clothes that has to get washed? The guy who burned it, right? In other words, it's not the guy who sprinkled the blood, it's the guy who burned it. So rather, the Brisa means to ask, Talmud lomar, chatos. It says the parach, it says it's double, it's questioning, why is it that the pasuk repeats the word chatos, the parachatos and the seir chatos? Why doesn't the pasuk just say parvis ira chatos, right? The bull and the goat of the chatos. It doesn't have to say the bull that's a chatos and the seir the chatos. Lefisha lo lamanu el parvis seir shel yom kippurim shenisrofin abeis hadeshen mitam begadim. So that is to tell me that the extra word is to tell me it's a miut, to tell me that the bull and the goat of Yom Kippur, they're burned outside of the three camps, right? On the Beis Hadeshen, we call it, right? So those are the ones that create tuma in the garments. Shar nisrafin minayin. So what's the source for the other ones? So Talmud lomar chatos. Therefore, the pasuk says chatos. The extra one to tell me that all chatos are the same. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. That's what Rabbi Yehuda says. So therefore, the reason why I have the pasuk extra is to tell me that this is now the rule by all of the internal chatos offerings that they have to be burned outside. And when they're burned outside, the guy who burns it his garments are tameh, he has to wash them and bring them to the mikvah in order to cleanse them. Rabbi Meir says, Eino tzarich, I don't need that drasha. I don't need an extra pasuk because Harehu Omer, it says ves parachatos ves sirachatos, right? So he says the bull, the chatos, and the goat that's a chatos that were brought into atonement in the Kodesh. She'ein tamid lomar lechaper. So therefore, the pasuk doesn't have to say that they came in to atone. Why does it have to say that they were brought into atone? Ma tamid lomar lechaper. What's the point of that? We already just learned all of the service, and obviously we know that's what the Yom Kippur offerings are there for. So li made al kol she hamis chaprim shehasorfan mitam begadim. The answer is, since they came in to create an atonement, that's what creates the tumah. Therefore, any other offering that goes into the Beis Hamikdash and creates atonement is also going to require Is going to require the washing of the garments. It's going to require the cleansing of the garments. So now, here's the proof. This is why we brought all this. For Rabbi Yehuda, right? Rabbi Yehuda, he learns chatas. In order to teach me the other offerings, also you have to wash the clothes. Why? Because he doesn't want to learn from lechaper. Why doesn't he want to learn from lechaper? Lechaper lo mashmalei. He doesn't learn anything from the word lechaper, right? That's what the offerings were describing. And my taima, why is it that he doesn't want to learn anything from lechaper? Lav mishum deibay le gzer shava. The answer is he needs to use that for gzer shava, like Rabbi Shimon said, which is that the chatos that goes inside is not pasul until you actually do the kapara. So therefore, what he's doing is he's using lechaper here in order to connect, like Rabbi Shimon does to the other circumstance of kapara, and says that if you bring the blood in but you don't actually do the kapara, then you haven't nullified the offering. So therefore, they're presuming, based on that, Rabbi Yehuda will agree with Rabbi Shimon that the blood is not ruined until you actually do the blood applications, not just bringing it in. So therefore, we hold the proof that Rabbi Yehuda holds like Rabbi Shimon. Okay. That ends that parak. We put that Gemara away on the shelf. See you again in 7.5 years. Bring out the next one.
We are going to miss you.
Mm-hmm. We will return to you.
Yes, Mr. Shem. Next, we have the principle of what goes up does not come down, right? This is the opposite of, was it? I don't know if it was Newton, right? But it wasn't, right? Opposite, right? This is the opposite of gravity, right? What goes up does not come down.
It's like we're in space.
That's correct. It's like we're in space. So this is a foreshadowing of the Eitz Chaim dinner. You will see it tomorrow. Okay. So there's a idea that once something is made into a malin b'kodesh ein moridin, right? Once we go up in holy levels, right? We don't go down. So once something attaches and it has established levels of kedusha to it, we're not going to reduce its levels of kedusha. So here we go. Hamizbeach mekadesh es haroi lo. The mizbeach has the ability to elevate and to make holy that which is appropriate for the mizbeach. Meaning, if you're going to bring a bat on the mizbeach, it's a bat. It's not, nothing happens, right? But if it's something that belongs on the mizbeach and you bring up in the mizbeach, now the mizbeach makes it holy, and you can't take it off. Rabbi Yehoshua says, what is the parameters of this rule? Kol haroi leishim im ala lo yered. Anything which is supposed to go up on the mizbeach in order to be burned. So then that's the definition. Once it goes up to be burned, you don't take it down. Shenamar, how come? Because the pasuk says, Hi ha'olah al mokda. This is the olah which is on the fire that is on the mizbeach. Ma olah shehi ru'uya li'ishim, just like an olah sacrifice, which is supposed to be burned on the mizbeach. If it goes up, im also lo tered, once that offering goes up, a valid offering of an olah, once it goes up, you're not supposed to take it off. Afkol shehu roy li'ishim, so too anything which is appropriate, we're going to discuss what kinds of things, anything that's appropriate for being burned on the Mizbeach, im Allah lo yered. Once it goes up, you're not supposed to take it down. Rabbi Gamliel says, Kol haroy le-Mizbeach, the rule is anything that is appropriate to be on the Mizbeach, not just burned on the Mizbeach. We're going to see that the difference is Nesachim, right? Wine and the oils and those things that are poured on the Mizbeach, they're not supposed to be burned on the Mizbeach, they're poured on the Mizbeach. Nevertheless, once they are designated for the Mizbeach, once they go up, they don't come down. Whereas Rabbi Yeshua is saying, no, it's the items, this refers specifically to the things like the fats of the animal which are supposed to be burnt, right? He says, "Im olo lo yerid." Anything which is supposed to be brought on the mizbeach, once it goes up, does not come down. Shenamar, as the pasuk says, "Hi ha'olah al mukda al hamizbeach." He throws in those extra words, al mizbeach. It is the olah which gets burned on the mizbeach. Ma olah shehi ru'ya al mizbeach. Just like an olah is supposed to be appropriate for use on the mizbeach, im also lo tered. If it goes up, it does not come down. Af kol davar shehu ro'ya al mizbeach, im also lo tered. So to anything which is appropriate to be brought on the mizbeach, once it goes up, it does not come down. Ein bein divrei Rabbi Gamliel ledivrei Rabbi Yeshua. There's no difference between Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Yeshua Shita, except Ella Hadam v'Anisachim, blood and the wine that gets brought together with offerings. Because Rabban Gamliel says, Lo yardu, those do not come down, because Rabban Gamliel says, once it's appropriate for the Mizbeach, and these are things that are supposed to be brought in the Mizbeach, they go up, they don't come down. Rabbi Yeshua says, yardu, they do come down, because Rabbi Shimon says, because Rabbi Shimon holds that it has to be things that are burnt on the Mizbeach. Blood and the wine, and those things are not burned on the Mizbeach, therefore they are not included in this pasuk of once they go up, they come down.
The flesh gets burnt on the mizbeach.
We say which flesh. Remember, we say that there's a difference between the fats that are burned on the mizbeach and the basar, right?
The basar flesh.
The basar is eaten, right? So the basar which is eaten is not supposed to be on the mizbeach.
The fats get burnt.
Fats get burned, right? That's right. The emurim, we call them, the internal organs and fats, and those get burned on the mizbeach. The meat, depends on the korban, right? Depends on the korban olah, all of it.
You do everything.
Everything gets burned.
From flesh to fat and everything.
That's correct. And everything in between. Rabbi Shimon says, Hazevach kosher unesachim psulin. Right? He says that the animal, the zevach, the korban itself, that is kosher, that gets brought up and gets burnt on the mizbeach. But the nesachim are psulin, right? And they, if you do bring them up, so then they hanechsachim kshirim v'zevach pasol. So he says, if you have a circumstance, Rishima says, that let's say you have the korban is kosher, right? The nesachim become pasol. So let's say you've got wine that's no good, but the korban itself is valid. Or hanesachim ksherim v'zevach pasol. Or the wine is perfectly valid. The problem is the animal became pasol. Something happened during the korban, somebody had the wrong thoughts or whatever it was that invalidated the animal. Afilu zevazep psulin, even if both the wine and the animal are no good, Hazevach lo yered v'anasachim yirdu. Then the rule is the animal does not go down and the wine does go down. Meaning it has nothing to do with whether the items become pasal or not, because he's going to tell us that this is the rule. Im alol yardu. Once these things go up, they're not supposed to come down, even if it's a pasal offering. Once it's on the mizbeach, it does not come down. But his rule applies specifically to the offering, not to the wine or the blood. So therefore, not different.
Like Rabbi Yeshua.
He does sound like Rabbi Yeshua, right? Rabbi Shimon seems to sound very much like Rabbi Yeshua. What's the difference? The difference is that he holds that the mizbeach is not mekadesh psulim, except if they come by themselves, not if they come because of something else. So therefore, if the nesachim are kosher and the zevach pasol. 1 second. We're going to be discussing this as the Gemara goes on, right?
Yes.
But didn't she even all the welcome is back? Zevach lo yered misham miachar v'hamizbeach kachu. The nesachim here do, right? The nesachim always come down because the nesachim are the mizbeach is mekadesh the psulim when they come by themselves, but not because of something else. So we'll discuss when we get to Rabbi Shimon. We'll hold on to that for a moment. Okay. Hey Gimel Amud Beis on the top. Ro'oi lo in. She'en ro'oi lo. So we said that the mizbeach is able to make holy that which is appropriate for it, not that which is not appropriate for it. So l'mu'utei mai, what are we removing from being acceptable? What's not acceptable? Amar Rav Papa says, l'mu'utei kmatzin shelo kitchu bekli. For example, if you take a kmitza and you have scooped it out of the utensil, but you have not put it in its own utensil, in a separate utensil yet. Since The kmitza, see, animals can be made hekdish while they're still alive. You can make them holy and consecrated. However, the flour, the kmitza, is not made kodesh until it gets put into the utensil, into a holy utensil. So therefore, when you take the kmitza before you put it in the holy utensil, it's not holy. Therefore, it's not roy l'mizbeach yet. So if you brought that kmitza up to the mizbeach and you decided I'm going to burn it, you take it back down, because that kmitza has not achieved a status of holiness enough to be a sacrifice, and therefore it wouldn't work. Maskif la Ravina. So Ravina asks a question on that. Maishna mida ula. What is the difference between that and what Ula says? Damar Ula said as follows: a mure kodshim kalim. Let's say you have the fat pieces of kodshim kalim. Kodshim kalim are like shlomim. So the fat pieces are supposed to be burned on the mizbeach. Shaholan lifnei zrikas daman. But you bring them up the mizbeach before you sprinkle the blood. Now, the rule of me'ilah is when is it prohibited to get benefit from something? So when it comes to kodshe kodshim, so then even before the zrika, right, they're invalid. And then the only way to remove them from me'ilah is the parts that are eaten by a kohen. The chatos and the osham have parts that are eaten by the kohen. Those parts you can't commit me'ilah on because they're no longer belonging to the Beis Hamikdash. They belong to the kohen. He can eat them. But the fats can remain. You can still commit me'ilah. But it's even before you do zrika. Before zrika, they have such a status of elevated holiness that you can commit me'ilah. If you use those items without permission, well, there's no permission. You can't use those items. If you use them, you're in violation of the prohibition of using Beis Hamikdash product without the ability to do so. However, when it comes to kodshe kalim, before when you shecht it, then it doesn't become holy yet. It doesn't become a korban until you sprinkle the blood. Okay, so the fats that if they sprinkle the blood, right? So lifnei zrikas daman lo yerdu. They can't, even if you bring those up, even though they haven't achieved the status of after zrika yet, when they become prohibited through me'ilah, nevertheless they do not come down. Why? Nasu lachmo shel mizbeach. By themselves, even without the zrika, they have become the bread of the mizbeach. They cannot be brought down because ultimately they're supposed to be burnt. And even though you have not made them eligible for burning yet by sprinkling the blood, once they go up, can't come down. So, what's the difference? Why is it that kmitza, when you didn't put it into the utensil, that comes down, but the fats, they don't come down? What's the difference? So the answer is, Hanach lo michsru maisa begufayhu. The answer is, these fats, there's nothing inherently wrong with them. The problem is you didn't sprinkle the blood yet, right? So you didn't do some other action. But these items, there's nothing wrong with them. They would be 100% just as they are. I don't have to touch these items again to make them roy. Whereas the kmitza, hani mixru ma'ase begufayu, the kmitza has to get placed into a utensil. This kmitza is a problem. Therefore, this kmitza can't be brought. That's the distinction between the two. Okay. Rabbi Yeshua says, Kol haroi li'ishim. Rabbi Yeshua, now we're into his opinion. He says anything which is appropriate to be burned on the mizbeach, once it goes up, can't come down. For Rabbi Gamliel, nami. Now Rabbi Gamliel says, no, everything else also says al mizbeach, he is more expansive. So now, Rabbi Gamliel, nami yaksiv ola al mokdah. What does Rabbi Gamliel do with this pasuk that says that it's on the mizbeach, on the fire? Because he also has that issue. It says on the fire. He says that teaches me a different rule. Hahu lehadure pokin hu da'asa. The answer is, he teaches that sometimes things will pop out of the fire, right? Though things will expand in heat, and something will go popping out of the fire. So he says, once it's al mokdah, means even the things that pop out of the fire, you got to put them back. Okay, the mitzvah to put those things back into the fire, and that's what this pasuk says, al mokdah. It's on the mokdah, then it belongs on the mokdah. The idach, now what is about Rabbi Yeshua? Lahaduri pokim minale. Where does he know that you're supposed to put things back in the fire that pop out? Nafgale, he learns it out from me'asher tochal ha'esh. It says from the pasuk, next pasuk. right? Pasuk says, "V'lavasha kohen madovad." He's going to wear his linen garments. Umichnasebad yilbasha b'saro, and he's going to wear he wears a michnasayim, the pants. Ve'rimas hadeshen. He's going to go up there. He's going to scoop out the ashes. Asher tochal ha'esh es ha'olah, that the fire had consumed the olah offerings. Al mizbech v'sama waits al mizbech, and you're going to put that next to the mizbech. Now it says me'asher tochal. That means that the parts of the olah have been completely consumed on the mizbeach. Right, Mesher Tochal Eish. So since the fire has the mitzvah is to have the fire completely consume them. Therefore, if it pops out, you put it back. That's how Rabbi Yeshua burns. The idach. Now, what does Ram Gamliel do with that pasuk? Kahumi baile leikule ola. So atamachzer via tamachzer ikule ketores. He says he learns that to tell me that the partially consumed, the word equal means to digest, right? Partially consumed ola meat gets put back into the fire. However, if you've got partially consumed ketores, right, that you do not put back into the fire. Right, if that comes off the mizbeach hapnimi, right, because the ketores is supposed to be burned on the inner altar. So if you've got ketores burned on the inner altar and some of it pops off, you don't put that back on. So there's a difference. And that's what this pasuk Shetochal Eish is telling me that. Detani, Rabbi Chanina bar Manyumi bar Eliezer ben Yaakov, as we learned that Rabbi Chanina bar Manyumi bar Eliezer ben Yaakov says, Asher tochal ha'esh es ha'olah al ha'mizbeach, that the fire is consumed, the olah on the fire of the mizbeach. Ikule olah tamachzir, you're supposed to return the olah that gets partially burned and comes off via tamachzir ikule ketores, but not the remainder of the ketores that comes off. As we're going to, as the rationale for that is that it has to be a reach nichoach. Partially burned ketores no longer has the smell of the ketores. It's already been burned up, used up, right? You don't, like ashes from, if you have like those incense sticks or whatever you burn, right? Once they're burned, they're burned. They're not smelling much anymore. So putting that back into the fire is not going to, it's not worth it. But the meat from the olah, that needs to be burned into ash. So even though that's already burned, it should go definitely back on the fire. The idach lav mimela, right? The other one says, well, that we would figure out on its own. Shma mina di kule ola mehadrinon. So he says, because if you're going to tell me that the partially consumed ola we return, so then we would deduce automatically the opposite, that there is something else that you don't return, and that is the ketores, right? If the pasuk goes out of its way to say that you're supposed to return the olah, why would the pasuk have to tell me you're supposed to return? If you're supposed to return everything, why does the pasuk have to tell me you have to return the olah? The answer is telling me the olah you have to return as opposed to other things, right? So you're going to learn both halachos from the one pasuk.
I don't know about that.
Okay, so that's the difference. Their difference of position on the word al mokdah. Now Rabbi Gamliel omer kol haroi, right? Rabbi Gamliel says al mizbeach. So now Rabbi Yeshua nam yaksiv mizbeach. What does Rabbi Yeshua do with that pasuk? Al mizbeach. So the answer is ahumi boile. He reads it as follows: My ka'amar rachmana. What does it mean when the pasuk says kol haroi lemokdah? Mikadesh mizbeach, anything which is appropriate for the fire, the mizbeach is going to make holy. Ve'idach mizbeach achrina ksiv. So, and then, I'm sorry, that was back on the first one, right? So he says, I'm sorry, go. Let's read that again. So, Rabbi Yeshua says, "Kol roy mizbeach." Nope, Rabbi Gamliel says that. So Rabbi Yeshua says, it says mizbeach. Hahumi boile, my kama rachmana. What is the Torah saying? What he says? Al mizbeach, al mokdah mizbeach. Kol haroi lemokdah mikadesh mizbeach. Whatever it is that becomes able to be burnt in fire, that's the thing that the mizbeach makes holy. Okay, that's how he interprets it. Ve'idach, how does Rabbi Gamliel say? Okay, al mizbeach is separate. So he says, well, because I would explain it that way, except the fact that it says mizbeach achrina ksiv. There's another time that it says the word mizbeach. That is in Shmos, Perek Chav Tes Pasuk Lamed. Shivas Yomim Techaper Al Mizbeach V'Kidashos V'Yaham Mizbeach Kodesh Kodeshim Kol Nogeh B'Mizbeach Yikdash. Anything that touches the mizbeach becomes holy. So therefore, that tells me it doesn't say anything about fire. Just as anything the mizbeach touches becomes holy. So therefore, you have to be able to learn that anything which is roy for the mizbeach can become holy, even if it's not ishim. So the idach. Now back to Rabbi Yeshua. What's he going to learn with that? So chad lehecha dehaisel shasa kosher, v'chad lehecha delo haisel shasa kosher. The answer is there's two different things that might be included, right? You have some kinds of items which were originally fine, right? You did shchita, they were fine, and then something happened. Let's say it became tamei or something happened to it, and now it's no good. To say that the mizbeach helps those things is one thing. What about those things that were ruined from the beginning, right? If somebody thinks about pigul or chutz l'mekomo, something is ruined from the beginning. Maybe that wouldn't be effective. So therefore, I need the word mizbeach twice to tell me not only is the mizbeach effective if it's something that's supposed to be burned, because that's his position, if the item was at one point okay, but even if the item was never okay, it's still going to be effective on the mizbeach. Still, the mizbeach is still going to be able to sanctify it if it's supposed to be on the mizbeach for fire. The idach, the other one says, "Kevan de psula ninhu v'rabinu rachmana lo shna haiselo shasa kosher lo shna haiselo shasa kosher." Rabbi says, I don't make that distinction. If something's puzzle, it's puzzle. Who cares how puzzle it was? There's no such thing as it's a little. This one's less puzzle than the other one. That's irrelevant. Once it's puzzle, it's puzzle. So therefore, he says, I don't need an extra pasuk for that.
What about something that was never kosher to begin with, like a non-kosher animal?
So that we're going to see. That would not be roy l'mizbeach, right? That's not going to be roy l'ishim, and so therefore nobody's going to accept it based on that roy. That's not roy. But we're going to see where they draw the lines. That's right. So if it becomes, I don't want to give it away. But basically, yes, you're on to the point of the next Mishnah, which is that it has to be something that certain types of psulim it works for, and certain types it doesn't. Where's the boundary? That's going to be discussed. Now, Rabbi Shimon says hazevach kosher. Right? Rabbi Shimon's opinion is that the korban is kosher. So let's explain what he means. Right, the nesachim are pasul, right? So if the nesachim, he says we're kosher, and the zevach pasul, right? But if both of them are pasul, then the zevach doesn't go down, and the nesachim do. So we're going to have a brisa that explains his position. Tanya, we learn in a brisa. Rabbi Shimon says ola. Pasuk says the ola, right? Ma ola haba'a biglal atzma. So just like an ola is its own korban, right? Why do you bring an ola? Because you donate an ola. You have to bring an ola. That's it. Ma'ola bal biglal atzma. Just like an ola comes by itself. Afkola boin biglal atzmon. Also, anything which is an independent offering comes up because of itself. If it goes up, it does not come down. Yatsu nesachim haboin biglal zevach. That means that the libations, as we say that in the fancy word, right? The wine that comes together with the offerings, since those are only being brought because you brought the offering, even if they go up, they do come down. That's it. That's his perspective. So it's not like Rabbi Gamliel, who holds that universally they are eligible, or like Rabbi Yeshua, who says they are universally not eligible. He says it depends. What caused this wine to be brought up? If the wine is brought up as a connection to another korban, then that it comes down. If it's its own offering, then it can stay up. That's what it sounds like. Rabbi Yossi Haglili, Rabbi Yossi Haglili says, Mitoch shenemar, since the pasuk says Kol hanogeh b'mizbeach yikdash, since the pasuk says anything that touches the mizbeach becomes holy, shomei ani bein royu bein she'einu roy. So the pasuk sounds like it's saying anything, even as you said, a non-kosher animal. Right? That's what the pasuk sounds like. Talmud Lomar, therefore the pasuk says, kivasim. Right? It says the sheep. That is the next pasuk in pasuk lamed ches. This is what you should put on the mizbeach. Kivasim b'nei shana shel yom tamid. It tells us sheep. Ma kivasim ru'uyin, just like sheep is a kosher animal, it's appropriate as a korban. Avkol ro'i, it has to be something in that category. It has to be something which is ro'i l'mizbeach. Rabbi Akiva says, Ola. Pasuk says, Olas Tamid. That's even further on, another 4 psukim later. Olas Tamid L'doros Seichem. It should be an Ola for all and it should be a regular Ola for all generations. Pesach Ol Moed Lifnei Hashem, that is brought by the opening of the Ol Moed before Hashem. Asher Ivo Eid Lochem Shama. He will meet with you there. He will appear to you there. L'daber Eilech Hashem, to speak to you there. So he says Ola. Ma Ola Ru'uya. af kol rei ru'uya. Just like an ola is appropriate to be brought on the mizbeach, so too everything is appropriate brought on the mizbeach. My beinahu. What's the difference between what it is that Rabbi Yossi Glili says and what Rabbi Akiva says? Amar Rav Ada bar Ava. Rav Ada bar Ava says, olas ha'of psula ika beinahu. The question is, what about birds? Right? A bird, right, is an ola. And Rabbi Yossi Glili says he learns it from kvasim. Kvasim is an animal. So therefore, what if I've got an ola that was a bird that became puzzle? According to Rabbi Akiva, mar maisi la me ola, umar maisi la mi kvasim. One's going to say it comes from ola, so therefore the bird ola gets brought up. The other one says we're going to learn it from kvasim, and a bird ola is not a keves, so it doesn't get brought up. Ulaman delight maisi la mi kvasim haksiv ola. So he says, now, 1 second, nobody can deny the existence of the other's pasuk, even though it says kvasim. How are you going to explain why it says the word ola? So the answer is ikvasiv kvasim veloksiv ola. If it had said that kvasim need to be brought, but it had not said ola, so havamina afilu mechayim. I would have thought that I can bring a live sheep. When a live sheep goes up there, you don't take the live sheep off the mizbeach. It stays there.
Do you shave it off first?
You'd shecht it.
You shave off the.
No, you don't. You don't shear the sheep for korbanos, right? Because the wool is already hektish. You can't use it, right? But what you would do is you would shecht it and then potentially burn it. We'll see that that's coming up too. How you would handle that. But I might have thought a live sheep also. Kasav Rachman Ola. Therefore, the pasuk says Ola, right? It has to be like a sheep, but that sheep has to be like an Ola. It has to be shechted already. Well, the one who says Ola, haksiv kvasim, it says kvasim. How you can explain that? Because of Ola, if it had said Ola, veloksiv kvasim, it didn't say kvasim. Havamina afilu mincha. I might have thought even a mincha gets brought up, right? Because an Ola is a mincha. So therefore, because of Rachmana kvasim, therefore the Torah says kvasim, it has to be a live animal. So therefore, birds, yes, mincha, no.
Why is a mincha an ola?
You couldn't. Why is a mincha ola? That's one of the types of mincha offerings. Could be a completely burned mincha.
Say that again. Mincha.
Yeah, an ola. Where's our blue? Yeah, where's our blue chamashim?
You must have said this before.
Like a heavy burden that's too heavy. This was not enough.
Look at him run.
Right. Do we have an ola that is a mincha? I want to be able to double check that I'm saying properly. Here's our list. Ola offerings. There are no ola offerings that are made of mincha. So that's good that we checked. There are no ola offerings that are mincha offerings. So what he's saying is that, right? The word ola. The question you're asking is why isn't ola in itself going to make it so that mincha is not included? Right? We need kvasim to tell me not. So he's learning anything which goes up on the mizbeach, even if it's a mincha, not necessarily an ola's mincha. Anything that goes up. He's translating the word ola more loosely than how we were looking at ola as a korban ola. But he's saying anything that is an ola that goes up on the mizbeach. That's how he's explaining it. Okay, good question.
Next one.
Okay, you have to catch, right? Can't let that one go away.
Trying to do a gotcha there.
No, it's good. No, it's good. Accuracy.
Yeah.
Accuracy. Okay. Fine. My ikka bein hani tanai lahani tanai demas nisan. What is the difference, right? These Tanaim are talking about what you can bring up, what you can't bring up, right? We had the opinion of Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Yossi Glili. We had Rabbi Shimon says that it's like an Ola, comes up by itself. That was in our Mishnah. Then we have Rabbi Yossi Glili, all of a sudden who has a new opinion, and Rabbi Akiva. What's the difference between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yossi Glili and the Tanaim who are in our Mishnah, Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Shimon? So Amar Rav Papa says, Kimatzim shekichu bekli ika beinaihu. What if you took the kmitza and you did put it into a utensil? That's the difference. L'tanai didan, according to both Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Yeshua, it's roy leishim. So therefore, it for sure goes up in this bech according to Rabbi Gamliel, and it's roy leishim. It can be burned according to Rabbi Yeshua. So according to our Tanaim in our Mishnah, lo yerdu, doesn't come down. L'tanai dimas nisa. But the Braisa's Tanaim, Rabbi Yossi Glili and Rabbi Akiva, they're saying that it's similar to an animal. So no mincha offering gets included in this. Therefore, even though you've done the kmitza, you put it into a utensil, it doesn't get included in staying up on the mizbeach. So that's going to be our distinction between our Tanaim. Okay?
I mean, it's going to be hard to take a mincha down anyway, right? How are you going to do that?
It's in the bowl. Right? It's still in the bowl. You didn't throw it in the fire yet.
Moshe can't handle the heat.
That's right. So that I'm presuming it wasn't thrown on the fire yet. Just bringing it up means bringing it up.
You mean you walked it up?
Yes.
But you didn't put it on the fire.
Didn't put it on the fire yet. Exactly.
It's on its leash.
Well, it's a mincha, so there's no. I wouldn't put a leash on my on my bread.
Do you think they use leashes like on the cow as it's going up on its belly?
So,
We need to carry around the leash on you.
okay, now. Do we take out Reish Lakish? 1 second, let's make sure we decide what we're doing with Reish Lakish here. Amar Reish Lakish, that's how we change it. Amar Reish Lakish says. Now we're in Mincha haba bifnei atma. If a mincha is coming on behalf of itself, so ledivrei kulon lo tered, that's for sure, doesn't come down, right? That's going to be according to Rabbi Yoshua, Rabbi Gamliel, and that's also going to be according to Rabbi Shimon because it comes by itself. L'divrei Rabbi Yossi Aglili v'Rabbi Akiva, but according to Rabbi Yossi Aglili and Rabbi Akiva, that is going to be tered. That is going to come down, right? Because they said minchas are not included. Okay, good. Mincha haba im hazevach. These are all our practicals. This is a good review, right? Let's say I have a mincha that comes together with because of a korban zevach. For example, we have the shtei halechem korban that gets brought on shuas. It comes with the sheep, right? And you bring the mincha together with it.
Yeah, maybe two loaves of bread as well with the sheep.
Sorry? Two bread loaves. Yes,
loaves of bread with the sheep.
That's correct. So he says, "Ledivrei Rabbi Gamliel." Right, he says minchas nesachim. So now, according to Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Yeshua lo tered. According to Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Yeshua, don't take it down because it's roy lemizbeach and it's roy leishim. So that's for sure. You don't take it down. L'divrei kulon. According to everybody else, though, tered, it goes down. Why? Because according to Rabbi Shimon, it's he said it comes because of another offering. So therefore it goes down. According to Rabbi Akiva and according to Rabbi Yossi Aglili, it's a mincha offering, so it comes down. Nisachim haboin bifnei atman. Let's say the wine that comes because of itself. L'divrei kulon yerdu. So according to most everybody, it comes down. L'divrei Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Shimon lo yerdu. It doesn't come down because of Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Shimon, because Rabbi Gamliel says it goes on the mizbeach. It doesn't have to be burned, right? Rabbi Yeshua is going to say it doesn't get burned, so therefore it comes down. Rabbi Akiva is going to say it comes down because it is not a sheep, right? And Rabbi Yossi Aglili is going to say it doesn't come down because it's not a roifer, it's not a korban, right? So therefore they're going to say take it down. But it's not a zevach. But according to Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Shimon, it's on roy l'mizbeach. According to Rabbi Gamliel, according to Rabbi Shimon, it's coming down because it's because Rabbi Shimon it's coming because of itself, right? So if it comes because of itself, it stays up. Okay, next. Nisachin haboyin im hazevach. Right? Let's say we have the wine that comes together with an offering. L'divrei kulon yerdu. Everybody says that comes down. L'divrei Rabbi Gamliel lechudei lo yerdu. It's only Rabbi Gamliel who says roy l'mizbeach stays up there. Everybody else says it's not an animal, right? It's not a korban. It comes because of something else. It doesn't get burnt. Everybody's got a reason why that should come down.
The majority should win.
Well, we're just explaining what the opinions are. We're not saying what the halacha is, right? So the whole thing is pshita. I mean, that was a very nice piece of Gemara to test our awareness of everybody's opinions. But if you knew everybody's opinions beforehand, why do we just tell this? Why do we have to go through this? Why did Reish Lakish have to tell us this? Right? Reish Lakish had to tell us, hey, everybody, chazar in time.
Because of suspense.
Because of suspense.
By the way, did you explain what are nesachim that are buying bifnei atzman? They do that sometimes?
If somebody says, I hereby am donating this wine to the base of Mikdash,
Did you do that?
then you could do that. Yes, exactly. Right? Person can donate oil, he can donate wine, he can donate mincha, he can donate all of those things. So the answer is, one of these cases wouldn't be so clear because mincha haba bifnei atzma itzrichale. The question is the mincha that comes because of itself, because ukedarava. Because we're going to say like Rava. Dama Rava says, Misnadev Adam Minchas Nesachim Bechol Yom Venishma Inon. But Rava says that a person is able to what do you call it? To donate a mincha offering. Thank you. Donate a mincha offering anytime he wants, right? So, which is a minchas nesachim. That was your question. Can I just donate a bottle of wine? Is that what I'm allowed to do? So he says, yeah, right. Now, there's no such thing, right? We don't see that in the Torah. There's no mincha that looks like that, right? All the minchas in the Torah come together with a zevach. Nevertheless, if he says, I want to bring this mincha by itself, says Rava, he could do that, right? He looks around his house and goes, what can I bring? I got flour, I have no animals. You could do that. That's okay. So now, that's the point that Reish Lakish is saying. Reish Lakish's point is, according to, I can throw Rava Shita into this because he's correct. So the problem with that is Venishma Inon Kederava. Why doesn't Reish Lakish just say the halacha is like Rava? That's a long way to go to tell us the halacha is like Rava. So the answer is no. Nesachim haboim imazevach itzrichalei. The point here is to tell us the rule about the wine that comes together with the korban. That's the point. The answer is because here's why. This wine we learned in the past, if it comes together with a korban, you don't have to bring it today. You don't have to bring it the same day as your korban. You can bring your korban and you owe the wine. Bring it tomorrow, bring it the next day, whenever you want, later. Not whenever you want, but later. So, Salka daita chamina, I might have thought, hol v'amar mar, minchasam v'niskehem balayla, minchasam v'niskehem lamachar, that since I can bring the mincha offerings and the sachim offerings later or whenever I want, that they would be basically their own offering. They wouldn't be connected to the zevach. The answer is Umodi Rabbi Shimon. Therefore, Rabbi Shimon would say that stays up. Delo yerdu kamash malon. That Rabbi Shimon agrees that no, that is in fact a connected offering, and therefore it goes up. It does not come down. Next Mishnah. Here's our boundaries. Now that we've got this general rule, what goes up, what comes down, and you ask what are the psulim? What are we now? Let's see. Elu im alu lo yardu. These are the ones. Once they go up, they don't come down. Halon, if the invalidation is that they got left overnight. V'hayotze, it went out of the Beis Hamikdash boundaries. V'hatame, if it became tamei. V'shenishchat chutz lizmano v'chutz limkomo. Right, if it was slaughtered with the thought of outside of its right time or right place. V'shekiblu psulin. Also, if non-kohanim or people kohanim or apostle catch the blood, v'zarku as damo, or they sprinkle the blood. Those are all things that invalidate the offering, but if it gets brought in the mizbeach, you don't take it down. Rabbi Yehuda says, shenishchat balayla. He's going to come to include three more things. He says those animals which are slaughtered at night, v'nishbach dama, or if its blood spills out onto the floor, v'yatza dama chutz likilayim, or if its blood goes outside of the azara. Im also tered. He says, no, I'm sorry, those are the exceptions. Im also tered. If those do go up, they do come down. Right? He's saying those are going to come down. We'll see what psukim he learns that from. Rabbi Shimon says, lo tered. He says, I disagree. Rabbi Shimon says, those, if they go up, they do not come down. Rabbi Shimon Omer, because Rabbi Shimon says, kol shepsulo bakodesh, hakodesh mekablo. If the invalidation, and we're going to go with Rashi's explanation rather than Tosfos' explanation because it's more straightforward. If the invalidation occurred while the animal was already in the Beis Hamikdash confines, not the Beis Hamikdash, but the Azara, right, in the courtyard confines, then it's already holy enough that the Mizbeach will be able to accept it. Lo hayapsulo bakodesh, if its invalidation occurred prior to arriving at the Beis Hamikdash, Eina kodesh mikablo. Then it's too unholy, and the mizbeach has got nothing to do with it. Okay, so that's your boundary. That's how Rabbi Shimon learned. Now Rabbi Yehuda says similar, except he has 3 of those cases, and he's going to say those are not good, right? And his cases were slaughtering at night, spilling its blood, and its blood going outside of the Azara. Those are all things that the psul happened once it came into the Beis HaMikdash already. Nevertheless, he says those still come down. We're going to see why. You should always do your avoda during the day, not at night.
Why do you do that at night then?
Why? Because he made a mistake and he ruined his offering, right? He was trying to rush, right? It was getting dark outside, right? Tried to slip one more in and he didn't make it. Okay. These are the ones that their invalidation did not occur in the Azara. Harovea v'hanirva, an animal has relations with a person. V'hamuktzah, right? Also, if the animal was set aside for avodah zarah. V'hanevad, animal was worshipped for avodah zarah. V'esnan, it was traded for prostitute payment. Hamechir, traded for a dog. V'hakil'ayim, also, if it is a hybrid animal. I looked it up, right? Whether you can mate a goat and a sheep, right? There is such a thing called a geep. It is real. Yes, unusual. Normally they don't survive, but yes, there is such a GEEP. There's
That's
a geep.
the only one that exists? Like not a cow and a...
Well, I guess because
A geep is a rare hybrid animal resulting from mating of a sheep and a goat.
there you go. See, it is puzzle for service on the base. Puzzle on the mizbeach. Can't bring it on.
Wow.
That treifa of the animal, treifa va'yotze dolphin if it was born cesarean section, ubali mumin if it has a blemish. Rabbi Akiva makshir bebali mumin. Rabbi Akiva, and we'll see why his reasoning is. He says if it has a mum, it can still, once it goes up, it does not come down. Rabbi Chanina sgana kohanim omer. Rabbi Chanina, who was the assistant to the kohanim, so he learns like this: Docha haya abba es bali mumin. I was there at the Beis HaMikdash. My father used to push these animals off. The animal that had a mum on it, he used to push them off the mizbeach, get them off the mizbeach. Right? That's the testimony. Right? Rabbi Akiva's, remember, he's the one who was in the end of Maseches Makos, standing overlooking the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash with the fox coming out, right? As Jeff did the Hadron, and we said that so he was around after the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. So obviously this conversation is happening after the Beis HaMikdash is destroyed. Here's Rabbi Chanina, right, who's talking about his father, right? Rabbi Chanina was the Sgan HaKohanim. He says his father, he remembers his father, right? So whether he was there, witnessed, or he was a little boy, right? But nevertheless, he remembered it. It wasn't that far from the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. Kishem shem alu lo yerdu. So we say, just as if they go up, they do not come down. Kachim yardu lo yalu. Once they go down, let's say somebody made a mistake and took them off the mizbeach, don't bring them back up, right? You're not supposed to bring them up in the first place. This is because they're possible. But if you did, don't take them down. But by the way, if somebody said, oops, like it's like that guy who like turns off the light on Shabbos and somebody says Shabbos, he flips it back on, right? Don't do that, right? Don't.
If you back in against the wall,
Right.
and you're back to the light switch, turn it on.
Don't bring it on the mizbeach. If you did, leave it on. If you took it off, don't bring it back up. The kulon she'alu chayim l'rosh hamizbeach. You got an animal wanders up the mizbeach, right? Goes up there. Yardu. That goes down, right? That was Yehuda's question. What are you supposed to do with you shecht it up there? If it's alive, it goes down. Everyone agrees that. Ola she'also chayil l'rosh hamizbeach. Tered. Right? If an ola animal wanders up the mizbeach, goes down. Shachta berosh hamizbeach. Let's say somebody did shchita on the top of the mizbeach. So then what happens there? Yafshit v'yinatcha b'mekoma. Then you skin it and you cut it up right in its place, right there on top of the mizbeach, so it doesn't go off.
We read that before.
We did.
Yeah.
We discussed that.
Another Mishnah that said that.
Right? We did that because you had asked about
Avraham.
right, Avraham Niakeda, and why was he shechting him on the mizbeach? And we had learned B'diavad, right? Could be effective, right? And discussed. Says the Gemara. Tanya, we order Bryce. Rabbi Yehuda says, Zos hi ha'olah. This is the rule of the olah. Hare elu gimel miutin. Hare elu gimel miutin. This is 3. Zos hi and ha'olah are 3 words that limit. Right? So therefore, this is Rabbi Yehuda's point. So therefore, despite the fact that we have a general rule that if the psul happens after it comes into the azara, here are 3 cases that are limited, and that is l'nishchata b'layla, the one that had shchita at night. V'shenishpach dama, and if its blood spills out, v'sheyotze dama l'chutz l'kilayim, if the blood goes outside of the azara. Shem also tered that if they go up, they come down. Rabbi Shimon says, Ola, it says Ola, ein li ela Ola kishera. I might have thought it means only a kosher ola goes up on the mizbeach, nothing else. How do I know to include these three? Specifically, you're wrong, Rabbi Yehuda, and these three things are included. Not you, Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda, v'halon, and also one that gets overnight. V'hayotze, one goes out. The animal goes outside of the base of Hamikdash. V'hatami becomes tummy. V'shenishcha chutz l'zmano. V'chutz l'mekomo. And if it got slaughtered with the intent for it to be brought at the wrong time or the wrong place, v'shekiblu psulin, or somebody who's a non-kohen accepted the blood, v'zarku as damo, or somebody who's not acceptable to the avoda sprinkles the blood. Hanisonin lamato shenoson lamalo, a korban whose blood was placed in the wrong place, was supposed to be brought below and is placed above. Lamalo shenoson lamato, or blood was supposed to be placed above and it was placed below. V'anisonin bachutz shenoson bifnim, blood was supposed to be placed on the outer mizbeach and you put it on the inner mizbeach. Bifnim shenoson bachutz, it was supposed to be placed on the inner mizbeach, put it on the outer mizbeach. Pesach, and a korban Pesach, vechatos sheshachtan shalol lishman, that you do the shechita. We're going all the way back to all our psulim that we've had, right? Big review of all the psulim that we had. You do Pesach or the chatos that you did the shechita, thinking about that not for the sake of themselves. Minayin, how do I know also those go up and they don't come down? Talmud Lomar, Toras ha'ola. This is the rule for the ola. Riba Torah achas lekol ha'olin. This is the Torah is telling us the rule is the same for all of them that go up. She'im alu lo yerdu. If they go up, they do not come down, despite the fact that they're a puzzle. Yalchol shani mar beharovea v'anir. Now I might have thought, okay, if you're going to include everything, why are you stopping with just those? Can include everything. What about the animal that had a relation with a person? V'hamukta, an animal that was set aside for avodah zarah. V'hanevad, an animal that was worshipped for a zarah. V'esnan, traded for a prostitute. Mechir, traded for a dog. Interesting, if we have time. Why a dog? Why is that such a bad thing? Right? So let's say v'kil ayim. After all, we throw our nevela to a dog. So v'kil ayim, and also the hybrid animals, utrefa, the animal that is a trefa, v'yotze dofen, an animal is a cesarean section. Talmud Lomar, the pasuk says, zos, only these. Some of them are excluded and some of them are included. Now, Umar Ro'isa Larabos as Elu Lahotzi as Elu. Why'd you pick these and not those? I mean, you decide to include some and not the others. So the answer is Achar Shariba Hakosov Umiyut. Once the pasuk says some are included, some are excluded, Marbanias Elu Shahaya Psulan Bakodesh, Umotzianias Elu Shaloya Psulan Bakodesh. I'm going to include the ones that their problem originated inside the Azara, not the ones that problem originated outside of the Azara. Now, for Rabbi Yehuda, Maisi La Mehacha. Rabbi Yehuda, he learns the rules of all of the other psulim from a different brisa, right? He learns different, right? Remember, he included from these psuk, he excluded these psulim from a different one. He has to learn these psukim differently. So how does he learn it? Mipnei ma amru lon bidam kosher shaharei lon kosher. So he says, why is it the Chum said lam badam kosher, that if the blood stays out overnight, that it goes up the mizbeach, it comes down? Sharei lon kosher beimurin, because the rule is that if the limbs, right, they are supposed to be left, if they get left overnight into the night, they get burned on the mizbeach overnight. Now that's what the right halacha is. The emurim are supposed to be burned overnight, right? So his point is that it's not so bad to leave things overnight. I've got an example of something where it's completely kosher to leave it overnight. Therefore, how bad could it be that the blood is left overnight? Not as bad, not that bad.
Refrigerated, unrefrigerated. It can really smell.
Well, not all the way. Sheharei lun kosher bebasar, right? And staying all the way overnight is completely kosher by meat, right? You're supposed to be able to eat the meat on the next day. So, therefore, it's kosher by the imurin. So, therefore, the imurin that stay into the night are okay. So, how do I know the imurim are kosher? I skipped a line, right? Lan be'imurim kosher. Why the imurim kosher? Because lan bebasar is kosher. So, therefore, therefore, we see in another circumstance it's permitted. Staying overnight is not that bad. Staying into the next morning is not that bad. Therefore, if the blood, which is not supposed to, gets invalidated at night, stays overnight, it's not that bad. It can go up on the mizbeach. Same thing with all of these. There's a circumstance when they are permitted. Yotze, going out of the base of Mikdash confines. Shayotze kosher b'bama. Going out of the confines of the base of Mikdash was kosher when the bamos were around. Tameh, hoel v'hutter lavodas tzibor, right? When we had a community offering, Korban Pesach, for example, the tuma isn't going to invalidate it. Chutz lizmano, outside of its proper time, hol meratzel pigulo. The rest of the offering, right? The rule by pigul is in order to invalidate the offering and make it pigul, the rest of it has to be kosher. So therefore, the whole idea is that the rest of it is kosher. Chutz l'mekomo. So, and how about outside of its place? Hol v'iskash l'chutz lizmano. We're going to compare it to the pigul case. Shekiblu psulin v'zarku as damo. So what about the ones who are not kosher kohanim, catch the blood or throw the blood? B'hanach psulin dechazu lavodas tzibor. We're only talking about those kohanim, not all kohanim. We're talking about the circumstance where the kohen is puzzle because he's tameh. We mean that only a kohen who's tameh. Kohen's tameh can't do the service in individual offerings, but he can in public offerings. Wait a second. You're going to tell me that because of a circumstance by the meat overnight is acceptable, that means that when it's unacceptable, it's still okay? So Tana Azos Toras Ha'ula Riba Samachle. We learned this before. Rabbi Yehuda says all of this logic, but he really is relying on the fact that the pasuk just says Zos Toras Ha'ula. It says Zos Toras Ha'ula. It says no distinction. All of this is the rule by all of the Olos, and so therefore all of them, there's a kosef, they're acceptable. We're going to stop here. We may as well mention, we'll have to save the dogs for another time.
Right.
Stop here. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. That's where we're going to pick up.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful.